Hello, this is a sermon based on Matthew's Gospel, chapter 16, verses 13 to 20. And I'm going to start this sermon with a quiz. Here are some ordinary, at least for the most part, names. Each of these people changed their name to something more famous. And let's see if you can guess who any of them are, and the answers will be given at the end of the sermon. Leslie Hornby is the first one. Then Harry Roger Webb. Anna May Bullock is the third one. Fourth one, Reginald Kenneth Dwight. And the fifth one, David Robert Hayward Jones. Sixth one is Marion Robert Morrison. Number 7, Morris Joseph Micklewhite. Number 8, Richard Walter Jenkins. And finally, number 9, Francis Ethel Gum. All these are very unassuming names, so much so that they thought that keeping the names would hold them back in their chosen profession. They probably have a point. It's hard to drum up enthusiasm for a billboard with Norma Jean Mortenson Baker, but change it to Marilyn Monroe and things change considerably. Names are very important. The outgoing General Secretary of the URC, John Proctor, had the rare gift of remembering names of people, even if he'd only met them once. It reinforced the impression that he cared for folk. Names often are chosen to convey something about the owner. You can buy books of babies' names that tell you that Neil, for instance, is Celtic, and in the Gaelic means a champion or cloud. And apparently a dynasty of Irish kings was founded by Niall of the 9 hostages. Helen means bright, and is also the Greeks' name for their country, Hellas. In the Bible, there are many names that convey meaning. For example, Jacob means he grasps the heel, a Hebrew idiom for he deceives. It was alleged that he was born holding the heel of his twin brother Esau, and his subsequent life made the name he deceives very appropriate. We are told at the beginning of Matthew's Gospel that the name Jesus, the Greek form of Joshua, means the Lord saves. So naming is very important. Jesus asks the disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" The very way that the question is asked is loaded. Jesus refers to himself as the Son of Man, a term he uses a lot. There's been considerable debate over the significance of this name. Some consider it an elaborate way of saying I. But in the book of Daniel, this term takes on a new significance, a towering figure that is more divine than human, representing the people of God, but also identifying with the suffering servant described by Isaiah. Such a being would ultimately be sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven, as described by Matthew in chapter 26. The disciples respond in a number of ways, all indicating different but ultimately incomplete understandings of the nature of their master. John the Baptist was a prophet that was in recent memory for many of them. Others had suggested prophets of a more formative age of Israel's history. Elijah was regarded by many as the definitive prophet, and Jeremiah spoke to the nation at a time of crisis, the exile, not dissimilar to the situation they now found themselves in. They are all figures of stature, men of God. As prophets, they spoke God's words, But at the end of the day, the image is insufficient to describe Jesus' significance. Jesus then homes in as he asks, "Who do you say that I am?" These are the people that have travelled with Jesus. They have heard his teaching. They have seen the miracles. They were there when Jesus challenged the religious authorities. They're more likely to have the big picture. Without hesitation, Peter responds, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." This is Jesus' true identity. So Jesus might be a prophet, but is really much more than that. Now, if we left it here, it would be fine, but it would not be the full story. We need to look at the context. The first thing is that where it happened. It took place in Caesarea Philippi, a city rebuilt by Herod Philip, named in homage to the Roman emperor whose patronage he enjoyed. It lay 25 miles northeast of the Sea of Galilee. There was a grotto under the mountain there that was reputedly the birthplace of the god Pan, the god of nature. There were many other temples to pagan gods, but dominating the city was a new temple, huge and built of white marble. And it was dedicated to the worship of the Roman emperor. Against this backdrop of worship of various gods, Peter's declaration takes on a new significance. There may be all these temples, all with different gods, but here is Jesus, the Son of the one true living God. The second thing is what the word Messiah actually means. It's a word that we bandy about quite a lot. The word, which is interchangeable with Christ, means anointed one. In those days, there were three kinds of people who could be anointed: prophets, priests, and kings. In declaring Jesus to be the Messiah, Peter was saying that Jesus was all three. Like the priest, he connected people with God. Like the prophet, he spoke the words of God and showed the people what God was like. As a king, he exercised God's rule over God's people, whilst at the same time being the servant of the Lord. This insight is so much more than the ideas that people had into who Jesus was and is. Thirdly, Peter is the first person to reveal Jesus fully for who he is. Judaism had been waiting longingly for a Messiah to bring them freedom. But in this moment, Peter has the insight that this figure, which to many would have seemed unlikely, is the one for whom they had been waiting. But Jesus underlines this by following up Peter's declaration with, "For this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven." Here is indeed the Saviour. So in this man named at birth, the Lord saves, is now also named the Messiah and Anointed One. Amongst all the surrounding tributes to pagan deities, Peter decides and declares that it is he who is the Saviour of humankind. Amongst the distractions of modern life, the false gods of money, fame, and status, the question still stands: who do we say Jesus is? And the answer is still the same as that which Peter said. He is the Messiah, the Son of the living God. His is the name above all names, Jesus Christ. And now you will have been burning with curiosity to hear the answers to the quiz at the beginning. Here they are. Leslie Hornby is better known as Twiggy. Harry Roger Webb changed his name to Sir Cliff Richard. Anna Mae Bullock became Tina Turner. Reginald Kenneth Dwight has become Sir Elton Hercules John. And I bet you didn't know that his middle name had become Hercules. David Robert Hayward Jones became David Bowie. Marion Robert Morrison, better known as John Wayne. Likewise, Maurice Joseph Micklewhite is much better known as Michael Caine. And likewise, Richard Walter Jenkins, Richard Burton. And finally, I don't know how many of you realised that Frances Ethel Gum became better known as Judy Garland.